What's going on, guys? Dream Killer here, back with another video for Call of Duty Modern Warfare. In this video today, the purpose is real simple. I just want to go over some tips and tricks for some of my brand new players that might be out there. Maybe you're a Christmas noob, you just got the game for Christmas and you're trying to learn what's the best way to go about having the best experience with this game. And I just want to go over some of my best settings tips and some of my gameplay tips for you to get you guys in a better situation to enjoy the game thoroughly. So first things first, let's go into the options menu. And once we're in there, first thing I would recommend, if you're playing on console, change your button layout preset to tactical from default. The reason for that is, if you see on the right there, you're switching up melee and crouch in the sense of using the R3 button to crouch, prone, and slide. I suggest doing that so that way you're being able to control your character and do drop shots a lot quicker, a lot easier. And if you don't know what a drop shot is from previous Call of Duties, this game is mostly focused on headshots and upper chest shots. So being able to duck down underneath your opponent's shots and be able to get that shot on them is going to make your, it's going to give you the upper hand and give you the advantage against your opponent. So that's something I recommend. The other thing is keeping control while sliding on your R3 button is going to definitely help you out in a pinch when you're coming around a corner or slide or anything like that, and having the best ability to aim. The next thing I'm going to recommend is upping your sensitivity for horizontal and vertical stick sensitivity. I'd recommend going a little bit higher on the horizontal, so that way you can spin around and get those shots for your enemies that may be coming up behind you. And your vertical stick sensitivity, I wouldn't go so high. I mean, there are some verticality moments where you will see some enemies in windows above you or in certain types of crates or something like that above you, but you don't really need to have the sensitivity too high, because as you may overcompensate shooting up trying to get the enemy, where more than likely they're going to jump down and land in your sights anyway. Just have to time it correctly. Everything else on this side of the controller settings, I wouldn't recommend changing anything unless you want to play around with some of these things. The other thing I recommend also is automatic sprint. I would keep that on, so that way your character is moving as fast as possible at all times, and it saves your right stick button from constantly being pressed in, and you don't have to worry about damaging your controller. On the next tab for general, I definitely just want to take a moment to explain clarity in this game. Putting your film grain down to 0 will help you have some clear line of sight at your enemies, especially at long distance. The film grain is meant to, make the game look a little bit more realistic, but you want to make sure you're keeping it as clean as possible. Which also, I recommend changing your world motion blur and weapon motion blur and disable those things, so that way if you see on the image on your right, you're again going to have the clearest vision when trying to see opponents at distance or at range when moving around. Going over to the next tab for audio. Playing around with your audio mix will always depend on the audio that you're using. Is it coming from your television? Are you using surround sound? Are you using headphones, gaming headphones? Play around with the different ones. I use home theater personally. I'm hearing to use boost or boost high is what some people do, but again, that's all depending on your game style and what you're using for audio equipment. I always lower my music volume down about 10. It is a very loud game. Even at 10 right now, I'm still able to hear this game music pretty decently, so that's up to you, but I usually lower it. I also lower my effects volume down to 80. There's many moments in the game where you're going to have loud explosions or kill streak vehicles, like the VTOL jet planes are going to be flying over your head. They're very loud, and this will help you with keeping that volume in control. With voice chat, this is this is all up to you, but I usually put it in mute everybody except party, especially when playing with friends. You don't want to have everybody interrupting your conversation. Sometimes your friends might be shy about it, but the fun thing is, muting everybody. Even though it's 2020, people still have no respect on the video game and, tend to talk a lot of crap, and it can be very distracting sometimes. So I usually mute everybody except party, but I will say that a lot of the gameplay does depend on teamwork. So unmuting yourself and hopefully you get a lobby where people are using their mics properly would help you out. Adjusting voice chat and microphone volume, very, very simple. Voice chat is how loud you hear your teammates during a game, and microphone volume is how loud will they hear you during a game. And I usually leave it about 160, 170, because again, those vehicles for kill streaks are very loud. And that should get your settings and options all set up properly and ready to go for gameplay. Now, speaking of gameplay, before getting into gameplay, the first thing I usually recommend is understanding how to use the private match to warm up before every game. Now, this is something that I like to do. Go in, set up a custom game, go to game setup. The fun thing here is if you're having a map that you're struggling with, you can choose the map. You can even choose night mode in certain maps as well, and help you understand the line of sights. Piccadilly is a big map that a lot of people weren't a fan of when the game first came out. Has very odd line of sights, but again, if you played Piccadilly, if you played those maps that you're struggling with, to understand how to get around or best lines of sight or whatever it may be, this is a good way to get your practice on, as well as warming up yourself for your specific button layout, or just warming up your hands to get ready for regular gameplay. For my example here, we're going to Shoot House. I always recommend using Team Deathmatch or Free-for-all. Again, this is just a nice way to warm up. And game rules, I usually leave about 10 minutes long. You can put it however many kills or points you want before the game is over, and I usually set it to about 5 seconds to begin the game as quickly as possible. And bot setup, depending on the game, right now we are in Team Deathmatch. You're going to get about 6 enemy bots. For this example, we'll put 3, and you want to change your difficulty depending on what your goals are. So leaving it on regular is really helpful. You're going to get some, good gameplay from the enemy bots. And again, this is just to warm you up. It's not to kind of make you an expert or anything like that, but this is also just to help you line things up when you're playing around. And we'll just get this match started. But I do recommend using this fairly often, or even before every time you try to get into an actual multiplayer game. Using the practice rounds will definitely help you warm up, loosen up, and get used to the game. Now, one thing I want to explain here is your loadouts look different from your actual loadout for multiplayer. And in your loadouts, you actually have the ability.
Enemy threats in the AO, weapons hot.
You actually have the ability to use every single one of the perks or the attachments. They are all unlocked in this mode, so you get an idea of what the gameplay might look like if you weren't using yep, I got killed. You can use all the attachments if you unlock all the attachments for your weapon specifically. Alright, let's get out of that. So that's just a recommendation now. The other thing I want to make sure you're aware of, you can actually change your loadout mid-game. So if you go to edit, you can add or take away whatever it is you want to add or take away. So let's say we added that now. And that'll be in your attachment. Upon your next death, when you respawn, you'll have that added. So that's something to look into. The other thing I want to point out is in core mode, you'll be able to see your reticle. Up on the top left, you'll see the mini map, and down on the bottom, you'll see your ammo count, the weapon you're using, your secondary and primary weapons. So one of the things I would recommend is understanding that in core, you're going to have all of these things, and in hardcore, you're not going to see a lot of these things. But in core mode, your white reticle, dead center, if you could see that dead center white reticle, you always want to keep that looking exactly where you're expecting an enemy to be. Look, so that way when you aim down sight, you're going to be able to, there you go, you're going to be able to get your shots pretty quickly and aim down on your enemy opponents. And again, this is just to warm up. If you just watched it in my previous videos, I was working on my MK2 carbine for gold, and that's why, because I'm a one-shot, one-kill kind of guy, and keeping my reticle, always pointed at where I believe an enemy's going to come from, and ADSing at those areas, and knowing my lines of sight. Look, somebody's coming. So these, these are my tips real quick for some basic gameplay, understanding where your enemies are going to come from, and understanding how to use the environment. So if you mount, you can get a good shot on enemies and not be as exposed as much. The one thing I will say is when you're mounting onto the wall, when you're sideways like this, you're actually quite exposed. Half of your body's exposed, even though you're pitched in this way. That's actually not going to be the case where you think it's going to be one of those things that they're not going to see you as much. This is just about stability. See that? In this situation, you're a little bit more undercover, but from the side, that's a different type of thing. And then my last thing is, again, understanding the verticality of the game. As I was mentioning before, you can climb up on things and hop over walls. And if you understand certain aspects of the map, or you're trying to learn certain aspects of the map, you'll notice that there are many times where you can climb up on things and get a whole line of sight on the other side of the map, just like that. There are many times you can even play the floor as lava. Oh, I don't know where he was, but he got me. And you know, you really move around the map a lot without even having to touch the ground. This is going to help you in certain situations to catch your enemies off guard. But honestly, that is really, you know, my basic tips for this game. I hope you enjoyed some of these tips. I hope some of them are new to you if you didn't know those things already, but it's definitely going to help increase your experience as a player. I want to continue playing the game a little bit longer. Sometimes people get frustrated and they walk away, and you know, I really enjoy this game. I'm a Call of Duty guy, and this is one of those games that if you learn the game and how to mess around with it, you would definitely enjoy it and have a good time. So when it comes down to it, I definitely recommend giving some of my tips a try. Tell me if they worked in the comments below. You already know what to do. Throw a like on there. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share the video with your friends. They're definitely going to help me grow my channel. And I will see you guys on my next video. Peace.